Hey everyone, we are starting today on Matthew chapter 1. If you're just picking up with us every day, the 5 days of the work week, Monday through Friday, I'm going to post a chapter as we're reading through Matthew. So I'll post them, and I'm going to post them all at one time. Because as our reading schedule, you just have to read 5 chapters in a week. So some of you might start on Sunday, some of you might start on Monday or Tuesday. So I'm going to post them all week, and then you can use them as you need or view them as you're reading, however you want. But once again, these are here just quick videos, some quick little commentary, pastoral thoughts as I'm reading through with this, as we're reading through the New Testament together. Man, I'm so excited for this. And I truly love starting with the book of Matthew. You got to remember that Matthew, like the other disciples, he's a Jew, but his main point of writing his letter is to Jews to prove that Jesus is the Messiah. Just like anytime we write a paper, you read a news article, you watch something on TV, it's always geared toward a certain audience. And so Matthew is writing with a Jewish slant and using a lot of Jewish allusions, some Jewish illustrations, and even some Jewish vernacular that as we get in and reading to it, I'll try to point out to you to help make it better. But the whole point of Matthew is to prove that Jesus is the King of the Jews, that he is the Messiah. And we start out with Matthew 1. I know we just finished Christmas, so a lot of this is probably familiar to most of you. If you go to Green Acres, I preached a lot of Matthew's gospel through the Christmas, but we'll try to pick up on some things. We start with the genealogy, and I know this is the rough part to start, right? You read a lot of father, begat. You read all these names. But there's a couple interesting things about the genealogy. The first is on the first verse. It says, this book is the genealogy of Jesus Christ. The word genealogy is the word Genesis. This is the beginning of Jesus Christ as a human, right? Of course, he's existed from the beginning of time, but as on earth, this is his beginning. And it gives us this genealogy. And you can really break this genealogy into three parts, right? It starts with Abraham, goes to David, and then from David, it goes to the exile, and then from the exile, it goes to the Messiah, to Jesus. In each one of those, it has 14 generations. And really the main reason why it has that is that, of course, there was people not mentioned, but you got to remember, not everybody had the Bible, right? So the genealogies had to be easy. They had to be turned in. Most of them were turned into songs and to riddles that people would know and understand. So you kind of have 14 to David, you have 14 to the exile into Babylon, and then you have 14 from Babylon to the birth, to the nativity. There's 4 ladies mentioned in there: Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Mary. Just interesting. And most of those ladies, you think Tamar, Rahab, and Ruth, they weren't the best. They of all the ladies that were mentioned, they weren't the best. If you go back and read their stories, it's just interesting that of how they're put in here. But you read through these genealogies, through these 3 sections. And what's the most interesting is when you get to verse 11. You get to verse 11 and it says, Josiah the father of Jeconiah. Now, Jeconiah, if you were to go and read Jeremiah chapter 20, you can read more about him. But basically, he was cursed. God cursed him and said that his children would no longer sit on the throne. And it was actually his uncle that after all of his children were pretty much losers, his uncle took over the throne. But because of that, you read the bloodline, it would actually almost make Jesus, if you're reading this, not an heir to the throne, right? Because he comes through Jeconiah. But we have to remember that Jesus was not through the bloodline of Joseph. Matthew 1 is the genealogy from Joseph to Jesus. It's just showing that there's a path from the King of David, right? Because Joseph was not Jesus' father. Mary was his mother, and of course it was a virgin birth. So Joseph is a stepfather. So you'd have to actually go to Luke to see Mary's genealogy to see how the blood traces through, and it goes around Jeconiah, giving him the right standing to be able to say that he has the right blood line and he has the right heir line, the king of David. So Joseph gives him the right heir line, but Mary gives him the correct bloodline. Another thing I want to point out is at the end of chapter 1, notice it says in verse 24, when Joseph woke up from his sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded. He took his wife, right? So the angel came and visited him in a dream, where every other character in the Christmas story, the angel came to them while they were awake, right? You have Zechariah, you have the shepherds, you have Mary. But to Joseph, he came in a dream. But when that dream was over, immediately Joseph gets up, no longer wants to divorce her, and says he took as his wife. He hurried that engagement, all right, that betrothal period, and took him as his wife. But notice verse 25 is very important, that but he knew her not until she had given birth. So they never consummated that marriage until after the birth of Jesus. And of course, we have multiple places in the New Testament that after Jesus was born, they did consummate because Mary had other kids. She did not say a perpetual virgin as the Catholic Church tells people. So that's really Matthew 1. I know it's the Christmas season and we just did this, but man, I'm so glad we're doing this. Looking forward for Matthew chapter 2 tomorrow. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.